Picture this. It's the 7th season of one of television's most beloved shows, The Carol Burnett Show. The cast is in the middle of rehearsals with two of the nicest people in showbiz, Petula Clark and Tim Conway. The energy should be electric, the laughs should be flowing. But instead, there's tension in the air so thick you could cut it with a knife. One of the show's biggest stars, Harvey Korman, is in a mood. Not just any mood, but the kind of mood that's making everyone uncomfortable. He's scowling at people. He's being rude to the guests. And Carol Burnett, America's sweetheart, the woman known for being kind and professional to everyone, is watching it all unfold. What happened next shocked the entire cast and crew. Because that night, after the show wrapped, Carol Burnett did something she had never done before and would never do again. She fired Harvey Korman, one of her closest collaborators, one of the most talented performers on her show, was suddenly out of a job. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. The way the story ended would change everything, and it reveals a side of Carol Burnett that most people never knew existed. To understand why this moment was so shocking, you need to understand just how big The Carol Burnett Show really was. When it premiered on CBS on September 11, 1967, nobody expected it to become one of the most successful variety shows in television history. But for 11 glorious years, 30 million Americans tuned in every single week to watch Carol Burnett and her talented cast create comedy magic. This wasn't just another variety show. The Carol Burnett Show was appointment television. Every Saturday night, families across America gathered around their TV sets to watch Carol and her ensemble perform sketches, parodies, and musical numbers that would become legendary. We're talking about sketches like Went with the Wind, the hilarious Gone with the Wind parody, where Carol wore a curtain rod as shoulders. We're talking about the family sketches that were so popular, they eventually spawned the spin-off series Mama's Family. The show won 25 Emmy Awards during its original run and was nominated for 70. Think about that for a second. This show wasn't just successful, it was a cultural phenomenon that defined an entire era of television comedy. And at the heart of it all was an ensemble cast that worked together like a well-oiled machine. Carol Burnett was the star, of course, but she surrounded herself with incredible talent. There was Harvey Korman, the versatile comedic actor who could play anyone from a bumbling husband to a stuffy aristocrat. There was Lyle Waggoner, the handsome leading man. There was Vicki Lawrence, who started as a teenager and became one of the show's most memorable performers. And there was Tim Conway, who began as a frequent guest before becoming a regular cast member, known for his ability to make his co-stars break character and laugh uncontrollably. The chemistry between these performers was electric. They looked like they were having the time of their lives, and in many ways, they were. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere was like a family. Carol made sure of it. She created an environment where creativity could flourish, where performers had the freedom to take risks and try new things. One of her associate producers, Bob Wright, once said that Carol preferred working with people she knew and trusted, creating what he called a true repertory company. But here's what made The Carol Burnett Show truly special. Unlike modern shows that are heavily edited and polished in post-production, this show was performed in front of a live studio audience and taped with minimal editing. When someone broke character and started laughing, they left it in. When Tim Conway went off script and improvised something hilarious that made Harvey Korman lose it, they kept it in the final cut. This gave the show an energy and spontaneity that you just don't see anymore. Carol herself would start each show with a question and answer session with the audience, taking requests and demonstrating her incredible ability to ad-lib. She'd often end up doing her famous Tarzan yell at someone's request. And she'd close every show by tugging on her left ear, a sweet message to her grandmother that she was doing well and that she loved her. This was the world of The Carol Burnett Show, a world of laughter, creativity, and genuine affection between cast members, which is exactly why what happened during that 7th season was so shocking. It was during rehearsals for an episode in the show's 7th season. The guests that week were Petula Clark, the British singer known for hits like Downtown, and Tim Conway, who at this point was still a guest star and hadn't yet joined the cast as a regular. Both were known throughout the industry as two of the nicest, most professional people in showbiz. But something was off with Harvey Korman. Way off. In her 2016 memoir, In Such Good Company, 11 Years of Laughter, Mayhem, and Fun in the Sandbox, Carol Burnett described exactly what happened. Harvey was wearing an Elvis costume that morning for one of the sketches, and from the moment rehearsals started, he was in a foul mood. He was scowling at everyone. He was short-tempered. And then it happened. He was actually rude to Tim Conway and Petula Clark, two guests on her show. Now Carol knew that Harvey could sometimes be moody. In a 2022 interview, she admitted that he could sometimes be a little difficult, that he could turn on a dime. But she usually brushed it off when his mood was directed at her or the regular cast members. They all understood each other. They were like family. You deal with family members having bad days. But being rude to guests? That crossed a line. That was Carol's business, literally. This was the Carol Burnett Show, and she was responsible for making sure everything ran smoothly, that guests felt welcome, and that the quality of the show never suffered. So Carol made a decision. After rehearsal, she went to Harvey Korman's dressing room to have a conversation. Now, according to her own admission, Carol Burnett wasn't typically a confrontational person. She preferred to keep things light, to avoid conflict. But this situation required her to step up as a leader. She knocked on his dressing room door and went inside. She asked him if something was wrong. And Harvey's response? He told her to mind her own business. Let that sink in for a moment. Carol Burnett, the star and executive producer of the show, the person whose name was literally in the title, was being told to mind her own business about what happened on her show. Carol stood her ground. She reminded Harvey that anything involving the guest stars and the quality of the show was absolutely her business. This wasn't just about him having a bad day. This was about professionalism. This was about the integrity of the show they were all building together. Harvey dug in his heels. He told Carol that she couldn't dictate how he should feel or act. And then he dropped a bomb. He said he'd just as soon go home and never come back after that night's show. Then he physically walked her backwards out of his dressing room and closed the door in her face. Carol Burnett stood in that hallway, probably in shock. Here was one of her most talented cast members, someone she'd worked with since the show's beginning. Someone she considered a friend, dismissing her and threatening to quit. But here's where Carol Burnett showed everyone exactly what she was made of. Carol Burnett didn't hesitate. She didn't second-guess herself. She didn't try to smooth things over or pretend it hadn't happened. Instead, she went straight to a phone and called Harvey Korman's agent. "Your client won't be working on the show anymore," she told him. Just like that, direct, clear, decisive. Then she went back to Harvey's dressing room. The show had wrapped for the night, and it was time to deliver the news. She walked in and said something that Harvey Korman probably never expected to hear. "Well, you got your wish. I called your agent, and he's aware of the situation. You were rude to our guests, and because of your behavior, I was screwing up all over the place tonight during the show. I can't work like that, so if you want off, you're free to go." Think about what was happening in this moment. Carol Burnett was firing one of the most talented comedic actors in television. Harvey Korman was essential to the show's success. He was brilliant in sketches, he had perfect timing, and audiences loved him. Losing him could potentially damage the show's ratings and quality, but Carol was willing to take that risk because she understood something fundamental about leadership and creating a healthy work environment. She was setting a boundary. She was making it clear that talent alone wasn't enough. You could be the funniest person in the world, but if you couldn't treat people with respect, if you couldn't be professional, then there was no place for you on her show. As Carol turned to leave, Harvey stopped her. The reality of what had just happened was sinking in. He asked if there was anything he could do to make things right. And this is where Carol Burnett showed not just strength, but wisdom. She didn't hold a grudge. She didn't make him grovel. Instead, she gave him a very specific path forward. "This coming Monday, I want to see you cheerful," she told him. "Not only Monday, but the whole week. And you are never ever to be nasty to one of our guests or anyone on our crew. We all have moods, but we don't bring them to work." Then she added something that would become legendary among the cast and crew. "In fact, it would tickle me pink to see you skipping around and hear you whistling in the hall." They shook hands on it. The deal was made. Harvey Korman had a second chance, but only if he could stick to the agreement. But here's the thing. Carol had no idea if Harvey would actually follow through. She had stood her ground, she had set clear expectations. But would he really change? Would he come back Monday morning with a different attitude? Or would this be the end of their working relationship? Monday morning came. Carol Burnett arrived at the studio, probably with some anxiety about what was going to happen. Would Harvey show up? If he did show up, what kind of mood would he be in? She got on the elevator to head to her office. And when those elevator doors opened, there stood Harvey Korman. For a split second, neither of them knew what to do. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty. And then something magical happened. Harvey gave Carol a great big smile, and then he took off down the hallway, skipping, dancing, and whistling all the way to her office. Carol doubled over with laughter. It was so absurd, so over the top, so perfectly Harvey. He wasn't just following through on their agreement, he was embracing it with his whole heart, turning it into a performance that only he could pull off. But the story gets even better, because Carol later found out from some of the crew members what Harvey had done the night of their confrontation. After their tense conversation, Harvey had gone across the street to the local watering hole where many of the crew hung out after shows. And according to witnesses, Harvey stood on top of the bar and gleefully told everyone what had happened. He told them how Carol had laid down the law, how she'd fired him, and how she'd told him he needed to be cheerful. He wasn't angry about it. He wasn't bitter. He was actually impressed. He respected her for it. Later, Carol discovered that Harvey had actually gone around praising her for standing up to him. He admired her strength, her willingness to confront him and set boundaries. It showed him that she was a true leader, not just a star with her name on the show. To commemorate this transformation, Carol had a plaque made and placed on Harvey's dressing room door. It read, "Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky." And from that day forward, Harvey Korman never had another incident of being rude to guests or crew members. The problem was solved completely. The environment on set remained positive and professional. And Harvey and Carol's working relationship actually became stronger because of this confrontation, not weaker. Harvey Korman would later appear in an interview and admit something fascinating. He said, "I've never ever seen her angry. She scared the crap out of me." Even the comedic genius Harvey Korman acknowledged just how powerful that moment had been. This story reveals something profound about Carol Burnett that goes beyond her talent as a performer. It shows us what real leadership looks like, especially in creative environments where egos can run wild and talent can sometimes be used as an excuse for bad behavior. Think about the comedy world, both then and now. How many stories have we heard about talented performers who were difficult to work with, who treated people poorly, but were tolerated because they were funny or brought in ratings? How many toxic work environments have been allowed to persist because someone was considered too valuable to confront? Carol Burnett showed a different way. She demonstrated that you could maintain high standards for both the work and for how people treated each other. She proved that setting boundaries and demanding professionalism doesn't destroy creativity. It actually enhances it. The Carol Burnett Show would continue for 4 more years after this incident with Harvey Korman as a core cast member. He won multiple Emmy Awards for his work on the show. He and Carol created some of the most memorable comedy sketches in television history. None of that would have happened if Carol had let that behavior slide. None of it would have happened if she hadn't been willing to risk losing her talented co-star in order to protect the integrity of her show and the well-being of everyone who worked on it. When Harvey Korman eventually left the Carol Burnett Show after the 10th season, it wasn't because of any conflict. He left to star in his own series on ABC. It didn't work out, proving what Tim Conway once said, that Harvey was TV's greatest second banana, but not leading man material. The chemistry, the ensemble, the family atmosphere that Carol had cultivated, that's what made the magic work. And when Harvey Korman passed away in 2008, Carol Burnett was heartbroken. In all the years they worked together after that 7th season incident, they had maintained a close friendship built on mutual respect. Harvey respected Carol for being strong enough to confront him, and Carol respected Harvey for being humble enough to change. The Carol Burnett Show ended in 1978, but its legacy continues to this day. It won 25 Emmys. It's been preserved and celebrated as one of the greatest variety shows in television history. In 2019, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association created the Carol Burnett Award for Lifetime Achievement in Television, giving Carol the very first award. Carol herself has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor, the Kennedy Center Honors, and was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. At 91 years old, she's still performing, still making people laugh, still showing new generations what comedy with heart looks like. So what can we learn from this story? What does it teach us about leadership, about creativity, about working with difficult people? First, it teaches us that being kind doesn't mean being a pushover. Carol Burnett was known throughout her career as one of the kindest, most generous people in show business. But when the situation required it, she could be firm, direct, and uncompromising. Kindness and strength aren't opposites. They're complementary. Second, it shows us the importance of protecting your work environment. Carol understood that one person's bad behavior could poison the entire atmosphere of the show. By addressing it immediately and decisively, she protected not just that one episode, but the entire future of the show. She protected her guests, her crew, and her other cast members. Third, it demonstrates the power of second chances combined with clear expectations. Carol didn't just fire Harvey and leave it at that. She gave him a specific, achievable path to redemption. But she made the expectations crystal clear. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. And because she was so clear, Harvey knew exactly what he needed to do. Fourth, it reminds us that talent is never an excuse for bad behavior. We live in a culture that often celebrates difficult geniuses, that romanticizes the tortured artist who treats everyone around them poorly, but creates brilliant work. Carol Burnett rejected that entirely. She insisted that you could be talented and professional, creative and kind. And finally, this story shows us what true leadership looks like in action. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's not about demanding respect or throwing your weight around. It's about having the courage to do what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it might cost you something valuable, even when it would be easier to just let it go. Carol Burnett created something special with her show. Not just because it was funny, though it was hilarious, not just because the performers were talented, though they were extraordinary, but because she created an environment where people could do their best work, where creativity could flourish, where laughter was the goal, but professionalism was the foundation. The day Carol Burnett fired Harvey Korman could have been the end of their partnership. Instead, it became the beginning of an even stronger working relationship built on mutual respect and clear boundaries. That's the kind of leadership that creates lasting legacies. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to confront someone about their behavior, even though it was uncomfortable? Have you ever stood up for what was right, even when it might have cost you something? Or maybe you've been on the other side, where someone confronted you and it actually made you better? Drop your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how this story resonates with your own experiences. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of television's most fascinating behind-the-scenes moments, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the legends of entertainment and the lessons they can teach us. Because the truth is always more interesting than fiction, and the real stories behind our favorite shows are often the most compelling of all. Thanks for watching, and remember, talent is important, but kindness and professionalism matter even more.